pleasure of reviewing. I had the pleasure of reviewing the movie like during Valentine's kind of weekend, so that was quite powerful in itself. I don't know. I found it really vibrant and interesting. And basically, the first question I want to ask both of you is, first, Darrell, what inspired you to write this particular story of the North American Canadian Native community? And to you, Tatyana, what was it about the character that resonated with you that allowed you to play Ginny honestly on screen?
Okay. So I grew up on a fairly isolated reserve in the interior of British Columbia in Canada. And so one of the ways that we were able to actually get out and meet other people was on the powwow circuit. So every summer as a young person, I would go and, every weekend I would go to a different community and I would go and meet other people going to different powwows. And it was a really huge and important part of my life. It was a way to celebrate my culture. It was a way to, learn the dances and the songs. And most importantly, at that age, it was a way to meet girls and, from different communities. When you're Indigenous and you grow up in a isolated community, it's really hard to meet girls that you aren't related to. So that's a very important part. So yeah, so that was a huge part of my youth and some of my favorite memories growing up. As I, at the same time, I was watching a lot of like those John Hughes movies, the
Mm,
teen romances and that sort of thing. So that was another part of my youth that I really loved as well too. And as I got older, I continued to love romantic comedies. But one of the things that I really realized, especially as an Indigenous filmmaker, was that none of the films about Indigenous people had that sort of mainstream love story in it. It was always when you watch movies with Indigenous people in it, it's always trauma or it's period pieces, from the 1800s. So there's never any contemporary stories about love or contemporary, stories of just Indigenous people just being people, falling in love, or having contemporary problems. So that was one of the things that I really, as a filmmaker, am very interested in portraying. So I took, for this movie, I was able to take my that very that really wonderful memory of my time on the powwow circuit, my love of romantic comedies, and I was just able to fuse them for this movie. And so I took all those elements and put them into one little movie, and yeah, people seem to be sharing their love of this movie the way I have as well too. So I'm very very fortunate about that.
awesome. Very
Yeah.
genuine, though.
Thank you.
For Ginny wise, it was very easy to kind of tap into her and to play her because we share a lot of the same upbringing. Example, in real life, my mom wanted to be a lawyer and I wanted to be an actress.
Yeah.
And that was a discourse that we used to have in high school about what would my future look like. So a lot of the things I did relate to Ginny with. Um, the romance on the powwow trail, not so once. More so when I was in the powwows, I was more so going to the stands for the food than the boys.
Fair enough.
Everyone I've fallen in love before, so you just kind of take that and you apply it to the situation, and it's that feeling, that crazy love goggle, first love feeling that you have to bring. And Joshua was so amazing. We had instant chemistry as friends, and that's the most important thing. And then that can translate on screen. The closeness and the safety that comes along with a good friendship. So yeah.
No, obviously you can I could tell on screen when I was watching the natural chemistry, so you got that right. My second question, so Sweet Summer Pow Wow deals with different views from different generations of the native communities and their personal experiences. So how do you want to convey this to the audience from behind and in front of the camera while still being true to the heritage?
Hmm. From different generations.
Yeah, because in the movie there's different generations, which is an interesting collation of different views and stuff, which I found
Yeah,
really interesting.
That's an interesting question. I never really thought of that. But I guess, yeah, now that I am of a different generation from that, from those characters, the Ginny and Riley characters, I guess it was kind of, yeah, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. I guess I am coming from now from two different points of view on that. So I guess the characters of the uncle and the auntie is now me sort of looking back and, thinking of that young love and trying to facilitate remembering back about what it feels like to have that first love and the remembering. I think the line in there is like the young love, the sweaty palms, the nervous vomiting, and that sort of thing, and remembering just the innocence of that, and from a more not jaded so much, but just a little more of experience, so that sort of thing. So, yeah, I guess there is, I guess coming from a little bit of an older perspective, I guess, I guess the film likes to kind of look back and remind us at a certain age that just how important it is to have that purity of love and not just romantic love. And I think Tatyana talks about this a lot, but love for what you're doing, passion for your future, for belief in what you're doing, and for following your dreams. And I think that's all a part of the word love. Being true to yourself, especially. And I think at the very end of the movie, the Graham Greene character talks about, love for yourself. And I think that it's not just romantic love. It's, love for what you're doing, love for what, for what really drives you and for what you're passionate about. So I think it's that there's, a lot of the adult characters, they have to be reminded, of that at the end. And I think hopefully by the end, everybody is sort of reminded, even the adult characters, that like what Ginny and Riley have is something that they have to get back to. I hope that comes across in the movie.
Do you want to add Tatiana into that yourself? You got anything?
Yeah, for sure. I think in real life and in the movie, there's there can be a pressure on the youth in the Indigenous community to represent our people in the right way, and it can come from the older generation, it can come from chief and council, it can come from a lot of different places, and this pressure to serve our community. Not that we don't want to, we do. But there's always the stereotypical, okay, then lawyer, doctor, that kind of engineer, that kind of pathway. However, I think there's a really, 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 really beautiful path in media and in Hollywood and in the creative side. As Indigenous people, we are storytellers. We're the original storytellers, and to go out there and to show Hollywood again real Indigenous representation, and what that looks like is something I think our community is proud of, and we continue to show that. Also, my mom is very happy now that I took this path and that I did do the acting route. So
Absolutely.
she came around just like Ginny's mom did in the movie as well. So
I
Uh,
want to say that it was great. Her mother was on set, and
oh, okay.
she got to watch her daughter act behind the monitor, and she was beaming. So it was all very nice to see, because I got a chance to speak to Tatyana about her mother, before we started filming, and just to be able to watch her mother, with that love, in her
Mm,
eyes, watching her daughter behind the monitor was really a beautiful sight to see. You talk about the different generations and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
It was present on the set as well too.
no, awesome answer. For my third question, I'm actually going to talk about the talent the current era we're in with really good set of diverse actors. So we're in an era where there's a new generation of native indigenous talent coming through the ranks, kind of like the same time. You've got Amber Midfunder from Prey, Opus, Kushani Brat, Res, Res Club, Devere Jacobs, Marvel's What If, Backspot, Lena Robinson, 1923, Lily Gladstone, The Thomas Crown Affair, The Wedding Banquet, yourself, Tatiana. You got this a project. I know you got a few other projects. off with Joshua. He's killing it himself with it and other projects he's coming. What do you believe has inspired both of you, this generation talent flourishing, in your opinion? Even behind the camera, but especially in front of the camera. Like such a big generation of you coming together. It's beautiful to watch, by the way.
Yeah, I think for me, I just seeing true representation in media really motivated me and made me want to pursue this as a career as well. It wasn't like I was obviously the first one. There were so many people that I look up to in the industry. Yes, Amber Mid-Thunder, Prey was insane. You know what I mean? All these really big movies coming out, Reservation Dogs, that was an amazing TV series. All those things made the vision clearer and clearer that yes, we are amazing storytellers. We have stories to tell, and I want to be a part of it. And yeah, so I would just say hopefully someone else younger can look at this story, can look at this rom-com, can look at this Sweet Summer Pow Wow and think the same thing, you know, and it's a snowball effect. And hopefully the more we are in mainstream, the more of our Indigenous community wants to go out and try the arts, but also the other people are, because our community has kind of been, I would say like divided a little bit with the rest of Canada, you know, and just to show them how who we are and what we do and what we're good at is something I think we should be proud of. And I hope Canada receives it well in North America.
I think this movie, you get to see, you're talking about the generational thing. We really get to see that in this movie from, Graham Greene to, the
Legend, by the way.
yeah, legend, exactly. So he's from one end of the spectrum to like Tatyana and Joshua at the other end of the spectrum, and the other actors in between. I mean, for me, I tell this story a lot where I've developed a relationship with Graham Greene now, where he is like, he's in every one of my projects now, and he's said, Darrell, whatever project you're in, I'm in it. But I grew up at a time, I'm from a generation where we all looked up to Graham Greene because he was one of the first ones doing it. And for me, I was inspired by Graham Greene because he wasn't just playing the guys from the 1800s and the teepees and that sort of thing. Those movies were fine, but when I was growing up, I didn't really want to do that. That didn't really interest me, the 1800 stuff. But he was one of the first Native actors who was, he was in one of the Die Hard movies, right? He was playing, cops. He was playing contemporary roles at a time when we didn't really see Native people in Hollywood playing contemporary roles, just playing cops or, playing regular people. So that's why I looked up to him. And I think it's roles like that where Native people are just playing doctors and lawyers and cops, or action stars like Amber Midthunder and Prey. That's something where they're the heroes of the movie, where they're the leads, which is something we don't get a chance to see a lot. We're either sidekicks or victims in movies. So I think that that's really what's happening now. Why are we seeing such an influx and such a major explosion of our stars now? Is because we have seen other people before us taking those roles on and becoming the leads and insisting on being the leads before us. So I think the more we continue to do that and say, I'm sick and tired of playing the sidekick, I'm sick and tired of playing a victim, I'm sick and tired of being the criminal. I want to be the romantic lead. I want to be the doctor, the lawyer. I want to be I want to be the hero of this action film. And the more we start to insist on that, they're going to pay attention. And then I think that's the reason why we now have this explosion of people who are doing such incredible work. The Joshua Ojeks, the Tatyana Baptistes, the Amber Midthunders, all these people are now taking the lead, and they're the first ones with their names on the poster above the title. And I think it's really exciting. And I think it's getting even bigger. And it's even in my generation, from when I first started acting, it's like it's becoming even bigger than when I started. So I can't wait to see what happens in the next, 30 years or so. It's going to be amazing. We're going to start seeing A-list actors who are able to open, big Hollywood movies just on their name alone. I'm sure of it.
Oh, we're on that path already. It is a natural evolution,
Oh
Darrell,
yeah,
Tatyana,
yeah.
you just got to evolve with the times. But yeah, lean on to my next question. What makes uh, Sweet Summer Pow Wow stand out to other Canadian coming of age romantic dramas? What makes this movie stand out from the rest?
I would have to say what makes it stand out is probably what a lot of the people who have been coming to us have said it stands out is that it's unlike any Indigenous movie that they've seen, which is that it's a movie about like what we said, it's just a contemporary movie that's sweet. It's a romantic comedy, which is something you rarely ever get to see with Indigenous films. It's it's about Indigenous teens just falling in love and it's being sweet. It's a mainstream romantic comedy with Indigenous people who just happen to be Indigenous. I think that's a comment we get a lot is that it's a movie where they just happen to be Indigenous. They didn't have to be. It's a movie where, it didn't have to be an Indigenous story. They just happen to be Indigenous, which I think is what really makes this movie stand out. Because normally with Indigenous movies done in Canada, the indigeneity of it is what the movie is about. It's like the whole thing is centered on that. Whereas this movie is about young teens having young teen problems, and
Yeah.
that's fact that they are native it's almost secondary. The whole backdrop of the powwow is very indigenous, but the main story and the main character is the fact that they're indigenous, I think is probably secondary to it if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. Maybe.
Mm.
Yeah, it came across that way, guys. It's very, you can relate, it's relatable. It's a
Yeah.
universal story. Doesn't matter what continent you are, South America, North America, Africa,
Yeah.
Asia, Australasia, teenagers fall in love. Every
Yeah.
human being's been through that at some point. So yeah, that's what really drew me to the story. So yeah, congratulations on that. Now I'm going to go into sort of the technical side of things. My question five is, so the cinematography stands out with the vibrant colors and the various landscape and costumes, and was almost like another character. And what was the thinking behind this? And also, Darrell and Tatyana, how did this help you embrace your character more and embody the festivities of everything in the
Mm.
story?
Did you want to start with that? Yeah.
Yeah, it was we were on set on Vancouver Island, Cowichan Bay. Most of the time we were shooting on location in a beautiful, beautiful field that would host a powwow, like that could host a powwow. It wasn't like just it was like, a set that was like, oh my God, no way a powwow could fit here, whatever. No, it was like that. We had background. Our background was all community members from Indigenous community members from that area. They were also the drummers from that area as well were from that community. And so, wearing the regalia, wearing everything, seeing it all play out, it was very easy to immerse myself in the world of Sweet Summer Powwow. Also, they built an arbor. So, you know what I mean? It was very easy to immerse myself, almost like I was at a real powwow. And at times we did treat it as if it was a real powwow with the protocols, with the ceremony, with everything. And that made it even more special and even more precious. So, yeah.
Yeah, we even had like real vendors from like powwow vendors who were selling their wares there as well too. We invited them there. So you could like on a break, you could actually go and buy some of the products, the
Oh,
t-shirts
wow.
and stuff while there. So it was very much that scene. Regarding the cinematography, that was a very important part of the movie from the very beginning. And I told the cinematographer, we had a fantastic cinematographer, Daniel
Mm.
Crothers. He was fantastic. I'm a lot of the look of the film. I was very blessed to have him. This is my very first time working with him, and I was very lucky. I researched him a bit, and we had a lot of meetings. So I was very, because I was very adamant that I had the right cinematographer for this, and so we had to be make sure that we were on the same page, and so we discussed the look of it a lot. And one of the first things I said to him was, I basically used the term Bollywood for this. I wanted to make sure that it was like the colors, because if anybody's ever been to a powwow, it's colors, it's wall to wall colors, and I really wanted everything to pop. I needed like every color had to pop. You take that, and as Tatyana said, you put that against the background of British Columbia, where you got the mountains, you got the sky, you got the green, you can't help but have color. So everything about this, I wanted, the pop of the color. I wanted to make sure that this was just swirling with colors. We had long panoramic lenses to make sure that we saw like the entire landscape of everything. So it was wide cinematic. We really wanted to make sure that this was a cinematic feel. So, yeah, I wanted that old school, almost MGM musical feel to it, and I think that and a lot of people have really talked about the look of the film. And I think that whether they realize that that's what they're seeing or not, it's that old school, old musical Bollywood sort of cinematic feel that they're seeing with it. And I think that that's really, I wanted to honor the cinematic feel of a powwow of the culture. I wanted to, like, in the same way that you would give honor to an old, huge Hollywood musical. I wanted to do that for the powwow feel. So that's the cinematography was as important as to the movie as anything else. So that's thank you for asking that question, because that was a very, very important part of the filmmaking experience for me.
Oh, it's such an important part of filmmaking, and you're right. It's got like a bygone era with a very vibrant colors set in a modern setting. And I feel like that's coming back in movies. I don't know if you guys agree. I feel that it's coming back,
Yeah.
and that's what I loved about it. So
Oh, and can I also add? Yeah,
yeah,
and
go
can I
ahead,
also
Dal.
add? Yeah, I just wanted to add one other thing too, is it's very important to me in a lot of the work that I do to have those bright, vibrant colors, because a lot of the times, especially with Indigenous films, and
Mm,
especially with Canadian films is a lot of times with Canadian films, they like to do like the muted like blues and grays and
mhm,
colors to make
yeah.
everything give that gritty realism. And especially with
Mhm,
Indigenous films, the look is always like this, what they call gritty realism, the dour colors. And
mm,
what I really love to do with my projects is to try to get that, that Hollywood, that mainstream, that vibrant color feel to, give a different look for, I want to have a different language for Indigenous
mm,
films moving forward, and to show that we are on par with any Hollywood movie, as much as possible. So yeah, so not only was that, specific to this film, but also for all my projects, I want to start moving away from that, typical quote unquote Indigenous Canadian look
gosh,
to these
sorry.
this films, the quote unquote gritty realism.
Nah, cool. My next question is, so obviously your congratulations, the film releasing today, nationwide. So what would you like the audience to take away from it? What legacy do you both want to have in the Canadian and worldwide film and television industries? Like what do you want both your legacy to be, and what do you want the country to take away from this film, Canada?
I want I think, like, as we were talking about, I would love for people to be able to say, "Wow, I learned something." First of all, I want people to be. There's a lot of people who don't know about powwow culture, so I'd love for them to be able to go and go, "Wow, that's a really beautiful part of Indigenous culture that I didn't know anything about." And I saw an insight into a beautiful, thriving, wonderful culture that I didn't know about. That shows that like the culture and the songs and the dancing are still alive and still very much a part of Indigenous culture. You watch the news and you hear all the negative stuff, and this is still very much a wonderful and beautiful part of who we are. So I want them to take away that, but also more than anything, I just like to people to realize that, we are here, we're contemporary, we're modern, we are beautiful people with our own, with our own lives, and yeah, it's not all grim, it's not all, problems and stuff. We're just people who worry about, going to university, and, worry about our dreams, and have dreams that we're trying to fulfill, and have regular people problems, and I think that that's really what I want people to walk away from this film with.
Yeah, I echo everything Darrell just said. I hope people walk away with a different perspective on Indigenous media. I hope they walk away seeing how an amazing director Darrell Dennis is. Um, because he is. That shoot was done in 16 days, and that
How many
is
days?
in
Sorry.
16, one
Wow.
six.
Okay.
Actually, 15.
Actually 15, 1 5. So
Jesus
to
Lord.
the fact that it's
Wow, it's
beautiful
amazing.
in that short period of time is a feat in itself. I think it's a classic. I think that how it was written, I think everything about it, how it was shot, getting Graham Greene to narrate it makes it so Hollywood. Like he just makes it like so powerful and holds it down for the rest of us to give our performances throughout it. I think it could be a classic for Indigenous communities for sure, like Smoke Signals, like those other ones, because it is so different. But it does have that mainstream Hollywood feel. Clearly, because it's going to cineplexes and landmarks across Canada. So that is his kudos, and yeah.
Oh, awesome. Um, Now, obviously, I've talked about previously about the talent in front of the camera, Darrell and Tatyana. Now, Darrell, I just wonder how inspiring it for you, Darrell, is it for you to see fellow native filmmakers like making waves like yourself in the industry, um, like Sterling Harjo of Reservation Dogs, and excuse my pronunciation, Jeanne Myers of Prey, the very Jacob she writes and directs and stuff like that. Um, So how is it? Is it sort of like empowering for yourself being a creator? And the fact, and what's great as well, that you guys are behind, you're telling the story yourself. You're not relying on anyone else. You're taking ownership, which is really powerful. What's your sort of comments on that?
Yeah, my God, it's such an exciting time to be an Indigenous filmmaker right now, and we're seeing, especially in the last, God, in the last, not just the last decade, but especially in the last 5 years, where we're all really taking control of the narrative. It is still kind of a small community where we all kind of know each other and know each other's work.
Mm,
And one thing that's really exciting about all of us is we all kind of seem to have the same sort of vision, which is really breaking away from that whole sort of being controlled by Hollywood. We all kind of seem to have the same vision where we're all fighting to control the narrative, to be the studio as opposed to trying to be a part of the studio system. You know what I mean? Like
uh,
we've gone through the system, and I think a lot of us are like we're done with trying to convince them that that this is now we're all taking control and saying we're done with that. We now realize that what we have to do is like just tell our stories as opposed to trying to convince people that this is what we want them to do. So yeah, it's incredibly exciting. I think, we are all kind of along the same lines of trying to get our stories into the mainstream. And I think there's one thing that I'm very excited about is the push towards comedy. You'll find a lot of the Indigenous filmmakers are finally pushing what we've known all along as a community, is that Indigenous people are incredibly funny. Humor is such a huge part of our communities. It's always been, it's, one of our huge survival mechanisms for years, but it's one of the things that we've never been able to show because, when films, about our community have not been done by our community, it's always been so dour and serious and that sort of thing. But we are some of the funniest people around, and communities are full of laughter, even in the darkest times. And so when you have Indigenous people telling their own stories, it's, even in the darkest of dramas, there's wall-to-wall humor, So that is one of the biggest changes you see with Indigenous filmmakers, and that's becoming very evident in all our films as well too. And it's a dry sort of ironic humor as well too. So it's I think you're going to see I think what's going to be happening now is as we start to get more and more power and people start funding our films more, you're going to start to see almost a movement. I don't know what's going to be called, like, there was the film noir movement and that sort of thing. I don't know, it's maybe a red noir. I don't know. Hey, maybe I just named it, but yeah, I think there's going to be a thing it's going to be such a specific native movement that will develop over time. So watch out for it, because I think it's going to be very specific to the Indigenous you know frame of mind.
Well, it's been coming for a while. It's inevitability. Like you can feel it. Like if anyone that denies it is kind of, being disingenuous, in my opinion. And it's great. Like I said, you want to see different stories. You want to see different points of views. You don't want to be churning the same thing. We need it's just like I said, evolution. And like you said, I'm enjoying watching it. I was gonna add as well, with the character of Riley being a gifted clothes designer, how important was it that you captured fashion and style of the native community, but embraced the modern setting? And as well, I just want to add as well, with Tatyana, your character obviously wanted to dance and stuff. How important was the fashion, the part of that? So both of you.
I can start. A huge part of how to make Ginny more contemporary, even in her traditional fancy shawl, is that usually the skirt or the dress, it is a dress. But our amazing designer, she actually designed my fancy shawl. It was into wide leg pants instead, and that was something really different. I don't see that a lot in Pow Wow regalia. And then she did like the classic ribbons on the bottom, but that was something very different. It also helped with dancing. Obviously, at the end, I have to dance in a certain way. You can't dance the ways that I was dancing with a skirt on. So that was different. And then she did add, like, for throughout my costume, she was amazing. She would add like little ribbons or orange ribbons for Every Child Matters, and that was all sprinkled throughout my costumes. So that was really, really beautiful and helped the contemporary and the traditional sides kind of mesh together.
Just starting with Pow Wow regalia in itself is such an intense fashion thing anyway. Like everybody's regalia, there's so much care and personality put into every regalia, and always has been. So I mean, I think even people in the Pow Wow circuit, they've always been fashion designers for the longest time without even realizing it. But even with for Riley's character with fashion, I think that's something that's, for some reason, I'm not really a fashion guy, but it's a world that's starting to really fascinate me. And I've been working on a project lately that's been getting some interest. It's a TV series that goes around the world of Indigenous fashion. Yeah, so it's something that I've been developing for a while, and it's in the works now. Hopefully it gets picked up. But the reason why it's so interesting to me now is like that this is a world that is really starting to pick up steam now. And it's getting to the world where like you're starting to see like Indigenous Fashion Week in New York and Vancouver, and like even there are moments in Paris now. So it's a world that's really starting to take off, where you're starting to see Indigenous fashion and haute couture, and like, I mean, on our last film, we had my last film, The Great Salish Heist. We had Ashley Callingbull was my co-star in that. She was just Miss Universe Canada. But we had for her wardrobe, wonderful Indigenous fashion designer, but we had her fly over her designs to dress Ashley in, but she was like, we were allowed to borrow it for like 3 days for the shoot because they were being flown over to like New York and then Paris for this thing. So it was like, this was when I really started to realize just how huge Indigenous fashion is becoming. And so that's another thing too, when I started really becoming fascinated with that. So the idea of Riley being a fashion designer is not such a crazy concept. It's a world that's really starting to explode now. So I think people should really start looking out for that. And I think like Indigenous film, like Indigenous filmmakers. Again, it's a movement. The Indigenous movement is really starting to explode with clothing as well too. So it's a very exciting time to be Indigenous and contemporary at this time.
Yeah, it's like it's being part of popular culture.
Mhm.
Like I don't something I saw today. I think I don't even an article. So the Oklahoma Thunder won the NBA title.
Yeah,
They're incorporating some of the tribal indigenous tribes into their costume for the new season, apparently. So
yeah.
things like that, it's seeping into popular culture, which is, like you said, is beautiful to watch. And like you said, this is just the beginning, right? It's just going to explode and get bigger and bigger and bigger. Um,
Well, I think something like that, which is very exciting, is that they are actually, it seems kind of strange to hear, but they are actually getting, indigenous people's opinions of what it should be, as opposed to imposing,
yeah.
telling, oh, we're honoring your culture and telling us
Mm,
what it is that, we are supposed to be happy with. So it's very exciting that it's like actually going, hey, what's indigenous, and incorporating that now, So that's very exciting for something like that.
no. So I was going to ask, just change up the question. Um, what would you say to piece of advice you give to the 10-year-old version of yourself?
10-year-old version?
Of yourself about this path that you might go into, what would you advise 10-year-old version of yourself?
A real life version or the characters.
um you could go both real life and character.
Years in the future, 10 years, or you mean 10 years old?
10 years old.
Oh my God.
How would you motivate them? How would you advise them?
I would just say to myself, Tatiana, not Ginny, just to believe in myself more. I deal a lot with like imposter syndrome, so just to believe in myself and that anything is possible, and if you want it, you can have it, but you have to work hard.
Yeah, I used to at that age, I used to go into my imagination a lot, probably to escape, my reality. So I would probably say to myself, keep dreaming. Where you're going is a good place, and there is, you can actually make a life out of that. Your imagination is actually a good thing. Um, yeah, it's not so bad, and life is going to get good if you just keep believing yourself, like Tatiana says. But yeah, like the imagination is a wonderful thing, and keep dreaming and make your dreams can become realities. God, it's weird when you think about it. My 10-year-old self who's always daydreaming. Now I get to daydream for a living. It's amazing. It's quite special. It's quite a beautiful thing when I think about it now that I never had to really grow up. It's quite exciting.
Okay, well, for my last question, it's been honor and a pleasure. I'm going to ask you both, what genre do you both want to work together next? If you get the opportunity to work together, what genre would you want to do after obviously Sweet Pow Wow, Sweet Summer Pow Wow, romantic, coming of age? What's your next genre you want to do together? That's completely different to this.
Yeah. I will start with that. I've already, I know I've already told you this, but myself and my co-writer Kathy Gardner, we are already developing. Like I said, we're already developing a number of projects, and there's a number of projects we can already see Tatyana being the lead in there. But I would love to see Tatyana in one of our action films. I think she would be great in an action film. Yeah, like a spy, like an Uma Thurman, Scarlett Johansson type, you know. I think she'd be great in something like that, you know, spy sort of thing. I'd love to see her in an action film.
Yeah, I love that. I would love to work with Darrell. Whatever Darrell wants me to do. But definitely, some of my goals in the next years, I always put goals. So like before I was like, I want to be in a Christmas movie. And then I got my Christmas movie. And then I was like, I want to be in like a Disney movie. And then I worked with a really well-known Disney director. And then I said I wanted to be in a romance. And then I got my romance. So my next few things is when I want to book a TV series, like an actual series. It doesn't have to be the lead, just to be a reoccurring on a TV series is really cool, just because I've never done it. And then also I would love to do a horror.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think you'd be good in horror. I
thank
can see
you.
that.
I've got two of those I'm developing.
Oh my
Perfect.
God, you're a busy man, Darrell.
You got roles in there that Tatiana would be great in both of them for. So
Yeah. Now, honestly, I just want to thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure, and I'm going to continue to, to keep an eye on both your careers. You're going to do great things. Obviously, Darrell was a writer. You're very young in the terms of a director and a writer. You've got decades to go, and Tatyana, you're going to go to the top with the rest of everyone. You're a rising star. Both of you are. So just keep what you're doing. And from the Hollywood North News, thank you so much.
thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for such amazing questions.
Yes, thank you. It was
That's
great.
very kind of you. Thank you. It was a pleasure. It was easy. Oh,